NASCAR's 75th year was filled with so many incredible moments that we should not forget. Let's talk about them now and maybe talk about some of the unfortunate moments. NASCAR's 75th year was filled with so many memorable moments that we should not forget, so let's make sure to recognize them right now, starting off with the quote or call of the year. I have two quotes from drivers in the Cup Series that I feel like we should highlight, starting off with Christopher Bell. During the clash at the Coliseum, Bell, along with many other cars in the field, were ping-ponged back and forth, which caused a bit of frustration. What I loved about this moment for Christopher Bell, though, is he turned that frustration into a fun, sarcastic comment that can be related to by everyone.
This is fun. We're having fun. I hear you. Just get all the spots you can.
This quote embodies an entire mood and can be taken out of context to fit literally every situation. I use this quote daily in my life. I would be a fool if I didn't mention this next quote, and it could almost be called Moment of the Year and could fit into many other categories we're going to talk about today. But this is probably one of the most iconic quotes of the season, and it has to be when Denny Hamlin won the Bristol race, goes out of the car to a booing crowd and said,
"Hey, I beat your favorite driver."
And who would that be?
All of them.
This season, Denny Hamlin truly entered his villain era in the sense that he's always been a NASCAR villain, but this year he's really taken that on in stride. At this point, I feel like Denny Hamlin is invincible and he does not give a shit what anybody else thinks but himself. And I really did think after that attitude shift, it would finally be his year to win a championship. Unfortunately, though, we know how this story goes. He did not get that championship this year, but perhaps 2024 is his year. Race of the year. There are so many great races to choose from this season, almost more consistently than 2022. We went to new and old tracks like the Chicago Street Course that turned heads across the US and the globe to NASCAR as SVG, an outsider in the sport, took the win. We also went back to our roots with the revival of North Wilkesboro, which was a major project, and it was a fantastic way to honor NASCAR's past. Honorable mentions this year have to be the Coca-Cola 600, where Ryan Blaney dominated the race. It was yet another showing of how well this Gen 7 car does a 1.5 mile track. Same thing goes for the Kansas races this year, which were absolute bangers. And if we're talking about Ryan Blaney, we also have to add in the playoff Talladega race, which had some of the most lead changes that Talladega had seen in the modern era. But the best race, according to my year-long rankings, was the Atlanta summer race that was shortened by rain. But oh my god, the action in this race had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. The threat of weather made strategy insane. The amount of passing for the lead was also crazy, and drivers trying to make moves that I think in a normal situation they would not make was mind-boggling. It was an absolute showstopper with the only thing left to be desired was just getting the race into completion. Don't get me wrong, I missed the old Atlanta. However, it's hard to hate the new Atlanta with the exciting racing that it gives us, and we're going to get that very early on in 2024, right after Daytona and the second race of the playoffs. Rivalry of the year. There are definitely a few that I could choose from, talking about Noah Gragson versus the Chicago Street Course Turn 6 barriers, because oh my gosh, that poor guy. I definitely think the Turn 6 barriers won that battle. You could also pick from Chastain versus Kyle Larson. Chastain was the cause or just part of the wrecks that Larson had at the beginning of the season that resulted in multiple DNFs or just poor finishes. But if we're going to call it back to the quote of the year, I think the biggest and most notable rivalry of 2023 was Denny Hamlin versus the fans. Again, Denny Hamlin does not care at this point about what the haters and the fans continue to say or throw hate on him, whether it's during driver intros, during the race itself, after race wins, legitimately anything. If DH is there, boos will follow, and he's just there to wave back, bow, and just take in all the crap that the fans and the haters are throwing his way. And with this being a back and forth issue all season long, really starting off with Hamlin and Larson's run-in early in the year, this has to be the rivalry of the season. What is the biggest disappointment of the 2023 NASCAR season? I could go all over the place with this, talking about how Justin Allgaier failed to get that championship yet again. Hailie Deegan's performance in the Truck Series this year, I really thought that she would excel, but I'm looking forward to what she can do in Xfinity in 2024. On the Cup side of things, Kaulig had a disappointing season, same with Legacy Motor Club. Their performance kind of fell off a cliff. But if I want to go for something that was pretty shocking and unexpected and not on my bingo card heading into 2023, it was that Chase Elliott would miss the playoffs completely completely and leave the season with no race wins. Obviously, with his injury early in the year, it was a circumstance that was crazy, a situation out of his control. But once he got back in the driver's seat and he was able to kind of control his narrative yet again, he dropped the ball with a suspension after intentionally wrecking Denny Hamlin at the Coke 600. And I was there for that race. And in that moment, I literally had no clue what Chase was thinking. There was so much on the line in that moment for you and your team, and being suspended after missing weeks due to injury and knowing that you are in a tough point situation did not help his matter at all. I'm not trying to say that if he wasn't suspended, he still would have made the playoffs on points, but he was actually doing pretty well in points leading into the playoffs, even though he missed all those weeks. So that's where the disappointment set in, but what really hit it home is when he didn't win Watkins Glen. Right then and there, we knew that he was not going to make the playoffs, even though he looked like he had a chance to win Daytona as the laps were winding down before the round of 16 began. Hendrick Motorsports as a whole was kind of disappointing. Alex Bowman looked like he was going to have a career year. He was leading in consecutive top 10s at the start of the season before his injury, and he was actually leading in the point standings for a while. And then when he came back from his injury, he was just not the same. And then of course, William Byron, being one of the most dominant cars of the year, falters at Martinsville and has one of the worst cars of the championship four at Phoenix and does not get a championship. And Kyle Larson, his year was very up and down. I believe he leads in DNFs, or he's close in leading in DNFs for the 2023 season. And when it looked like a championship was in his grasp, it slipped right away, with Ryan Blaney having the best car of the championship four. So overall for Hendrick Motorsports, I look for them to do better in 2024, but this seems to be a year to forget or a year to build momentum from. Best paint scheme of the year. Right off the bat, I have to say that 2311 Racing and RFK always had great paint schemes week after week. There are none I disliked this year. But when I take a step back and look at this season as a whole, I had two paint schemes that really did stick out to me in terms of their uniqueness and in terms of how happy they made me. The first one I have to point out is from Colleague. This would be Justin Haley's Mountain Dew Bristol Night Race paint scheme. It's incredible to have Mountain Dew back on a car in this monumental way. Shout out to the designer Tanner Witt for making this incredible scheme. I also have to point out another great paint scheme that's not in Truck, Xfinity, or Cup. It actually was Tony Breidinger's car in ARCA, her Cane's ride. I already love Raising Cane's. It's one of my favorite places to go out to eat. And this scheme with the flames is incredible. Another great fact about this paint scheme is she captured her best ARCA finish in this car at Kansas, which was a 3rd place. So not only is the paint scheme incredible, but it has a pretty awesome moment attached to it, which I think elevates how awesome this car was. Now moving on to moment of the year. Again, I can't pick just one moment, so I had to go with two. This one has to do with the Xfinity series, where I saw something I have never seen before. I'm talking about the Atlanta race where Josh Williams parked his car at the start-finish line. Josh Williams was involved in a wreck at the Atlanta race and had quite a bit of damage. He drove his car to pit road, where his crew tried to repair the damage with Bear Bond and sent him back onto the track. The race went back to green, but almost immediately went back under caution as some Bear Bond from Josh's car flew onto the track. NASCAR didn't like that, so they parked him for causing what could have been an avoidable caution with an already caution-filled race. In a moment of displeasure, Williams parked his car at the start-finish line, a moment that won over the praise of many fans and launched him into popularity, gaining a ton of social media followers, selling him a lot of shirts, and his podcast tour. It was just an incredible moment for him that really launched him into the mainstream talks of NASCAR fans. The second moment is one that I don't know if a lot of people would choose, but seeing this moment in person was quite incredible, and I have to say that AJ Allmendinger's winning at the Roval was a monumental time for Colleague. It's no secret that Colleague had an off season this year. They really weren't in contention to win anything, especially at the road courses earlier in the season, which was a shock to a lot of us, knowing that they are always in contention to win, especially with AJ Allmendinger. So when he started to dominate the late half of the Roval race and captured that win, and seeing the emotion on his face, on his team's face, you knew that this win meant something. AJ shared that you never know when this is going to be your last win, and it was so cool to see him just in a frenzy of joy and excitement launch himself into the stands to celebrate his victory with the fans, like Blaney and Allgaier had done earlier in the year at Charlotte Motor Speedway when they won their races on the oval course. The press conference afterwards that lasted probably twice the amount of time it should have was also incredible. That team was on a high. It was just such a cool moment to witness. Next up, Rising Star. I think you could throw a lot of drivers into this category. My first thought process was Jesse Love, but then when you take into account how good the Venturini equipment is above all the others in the ARCA series, I don't know if I would say that he's a rising star other than that he has incredible talent and he had the best equipment in the field. We'll wait to see how he does at RCR, then I might make him the rising star. I think you could also talk about Carson Hocevar in the truck series and how he rose to popularity and how his skill set transferred over to the Cup cars when he went to the number 42, filling in for Noah Gragson. You could also talk about Sam Mayer, who captured his first win in the Xfinity Series this year, then went on to win a few more races and made it to the Championship 4. But I wanted to pick drivers that consistently showed improvement throughout the season. For that reason, I have 2 drivers, yet again, couldn't pick just one. The first driver I want to pick is Chris Buescher, arguably one of the most improved drivers this year. Buescher started off the season on a high, getting a 4th place finish at the Daytona 500, where he and teammate Brad Keselowski had a chance to win. The next few races were pretty rocky until he hit Circuit of the Americas, where he really started to show how good he could be at road courses. A few weeks later at Talladega, he picked up a 3rd, Dover a 9th, and that's when the consistency in the top 10 started to roll in. Finally, at Richmond Raceway, Buescher broke through and won the race. He then went to follow that up with a win the following weekend at Michigan International Speedway, winning on a rain-delayed Monday race. Oh yeah, and literally about 4 races later at Daytona, won that race too. To see where RFK was in the past few years to what they did this year is an incredible achievement. Not only did RFK improve as a whole this season, but Chris Buescher honestly carried the Fords in the first half of the year. Unfortunately, when the playoffs hit, things didn't quite go their way, but that also allowed Brad Keselowski to shine too. All in all, I think it's easy to say that after the season he had, Chris Buescher is definitely a rising star, but I don't want to forget Bubba Wallace. This is his first year in the Cup Series where he finished top 10 in points, which is an amazing achievement, knowing where 2311 started this year with a lot of the consistency issues, especially when it came to the pit crew. But that entire organization put their head down and really got to work in figuring out how to get better. And I think we also saw a really big shift in Bubba Wallace and how he carried himself this year in terms of his confidence. And that confidence carried over into great results. He was able to point his way into the playoffs and made it pretty far. And for a newer team like 2311, that is a big deal. Every single year Wallace has been in the Cup Series, his results have gotten better, so I'm hoping next year he's as consistent, if not better, in terms of his stats. Last but not least, our driver of the 2023 season. For ARCA, there is no question that Jesse Love is absolutely the driver of the year. He dominated that series. It literally was no competition unless it was his teammate William Sawalich. But I am excited again to see what Jesse Love can do in RCR equipment in his Xfinity Series rookie year. For the truck series, I think it's really easy to overlook a driver like Grant Enfinger, but I definitely do not want to overlook him here. He is my truck series driver of 2023. With this being GMS's last year in truck, there was a lot of weight on his shoulders, especially with 2 rookie teammates, and he got his team to the Championship 4, where he finished highest in points than he has ever finished. And though he might not have had as many top 10s this season as he's had in years past, this is his best season statistically since 2020. This is also his 2nd season in truck where he captured multiple wins. He captured 3 wins this year. In 2020, he captured 4, so still on par with his 2020 season. He was so close to winning a championship at Phoenix. That's such a painful race, we're not going to relive it here. If you know, you know. But though he couldn't capture the championship for his team, he has to be proud with how he left things for GMS. As for the Xfinity Series, I know that it is very easy to say, well, Taylor, John Hunter Nemechek did not win a championship yet again. How in the world could he be your driver of the year for the Xfinity Series? Well, I'll tell you why. He captured 7 wins this season, very dominant performance this year. That's actually the most wins he's ever captured in a single season through all of his racing in his NASCAR career. Same thing with his top 10 and top 5s. He captured 24 top 10s, 17 top 5s, and quite honestly, if it wasn't for some bad luck and for some run-ins with teammates, I think he would have had maybe another win to add to his list this year. I do think along with Cole Custer, he had one of the strongest cars during the championship race at Phoenix, but unfortunately on that last lap, things did not go his way and did not finish inside the top 20, meaning that he finished 4th in the championship points standings. With him moving to the Cup Series next year, I don't know how he's going to perform. He's not at a team that can win championships right now, so really, this I think was his last good chance in a long time to get a championship championship to his name. And even though there's disappointment in that, I do think though his performance this season as a whole is worthy of Driver of the Year for the Xfinity Series. As for the Cup Series, this one's a little tough. You could go with Ryan Blaney, who was pretty quiet during the regular season. It was really carrying the weight of what Team Penske could do. And then when the playoffs hit, the team just put the pedal to the metal and went full steam ahead, of course, winning the championship this year. You could go with Martin Truex Jr., who was super consistent during the regular season, and then when the playoffs hit, his team faltered. But again, I want to go with somebody who was overall consistent this year, and for that reason, basically best in every single stat that the 2023 season had to offer, William Byron has to be my Driver of the Year for the Cup Series. It was so exciting seeing the number 24 in contention for a championship and having an actual shot to get it. And Byron has been a driver that usually picks up the pace at the beginning of the season and then towards the summer months tends to slow down. And this is the first year that we did not see that happen. Unfortunately, it happened during the final 2 races, but overall, Rudy Fugle, William Byron, and that whole 24 team kept consistency all year long, and we're looking to be the favorites for the championship. I definitely think William Byron will get the championship in the next 5 years, maybe less. But after a dominant performance in Cup this year with 6 wins, 21 top 10s, it is hard not to make William Byron the Driver of the Year for the Cup Series. What are your favorite NASCAR moments of 2023? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, this is our last video of 2023. Can't wait to see you all in 2024 and what next year's NASCAR season will bring. We are getting closer and closer to the Daytona 500 and the Clash, so it cannot get here soon enough. Make sure to check out TobyChristieCom on all social media platforms and TobyChristie.com for more NASCAR news on the daily. Also, make sure to check out AboveTheYellowLine.com for your ATYL merch like the shirt I'm wearing in this video and for more about us and what we do. Wishing you all the best in the new year. Thank you all so much for the support, and until next time, I'll see ya. Bye. Thank you all so much for making this year a great year for us at TobyChristie.com and Above the Yellow Line. For more NASCAR news and content, make sure to click the videos on the screen and the links in the description below. Happy New Year!